Hello, hello, boss fam. Welcome to episode 90. I'm Jenny and I help squirrel brained entrepreneurs kick overwhelm to the curb and get noticed for their talents. If you are ready to finally do the thing that you have been dreaming of forever and ever, you're in the right place, my friend. So in episodes 63 and 65, I talk about how to manifest anything you want based on my in-depth analysis of the book, 3 Simple Steps by Trevor Blake. And I'll include the link to those in the show notes, in case you want to go back and learn the step-by-step process for manifesting anything that you want. But the one takeaway that really stayed with me was the author's insistence on developing control over your mental landscape. Like he said over and over and over again that this was the single most important piece of being a successful manifester. So real quick, it annoys me to have to caveat this, but lest I be accused of promoting toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing, here is the fine print about everything I'm about to say. I am not suggesting that you shouldn't feel your feelings or that you should stuff anything that you're feeling down. What I am arguing, however, is that thoughts are neutral. It is our feelings about them based on the stories we've attached to those thoughts that fill our manifestation garden with weeds. So another way to say this is to say, if you are feeling sad or angry or bitter or pissed off, acknowledge it. Take a pause. Notice where in your body you feel it. Sometimes sadness feels like your heart is quite literally breaking. Sometimes guilt feels like a ball of something like knotted up and tight in your stomach. So breathe into that space. Feel the breath come in and expand that space and kind of soothe it. And then breathe whatever the feeling is out, and do this quite a few times and contemplate while you're doing that what kind of self-soothing you need right now. If you're feeling upset, what's going to make you feel better in this moment? What kind of self-care? Is it getting outside and going for a walk? Is it clearing your head? Is it having a conversation with your best friend who we haven't talked to in a long time? So do all of those things. Don't just stuff it down and pretend it doesn't exist, but please try to train yourself not to get lost in a story about that emotion. I am mad because. And a hint for knowing when you're lost in a story is as soon as you hear yourself think the word should. I should have done this differently. He shouldn't have done that to me. That means you're in a story. Anytime you're shitting on yourself or somebody else, that is because you have created a meaning and you've attached a meaning to that particular event. So does that make sense? You can totally process your feelings in a healthy way and still, I will argue, have a mental landscape that looks like what dreams may fucking come. And if you're too young to remember that movie, Google it, What Dreams May Come, and look at all of the imagery from that movie. It's like Technicolor. It's beautiful. It's what heaven would look like, right? If you believe heaven is real, that's what it's going to look like, right? That's essentially what we are trying to cultivate for our lives here on earth right now. Okay. So now that that caveat is out of the way, are you ready to get into some tangible action steps that you can take to pluck out all the weeds and create a fertile garden where the craziest, most audacious and luxurious and pinch me, I can't believe this is happening realities can be created? Because this is your year, y'all. And I am but your humble way shower. So let's get into it. Step 1, oust negativity. You knew this was coming, right? I said, swear I'm not promoting toxic positivity. So you knew I was about to tell you to get negativity out of your life. So if you've been around in my orbit for a while, you've probably heard me mention before that I haven't watched the news since 2016. And if I could attribute one thing to my progress, my momentum, my sort of stable mindset, like I am emotionally pretty even, and you could ask the people who know me that I'm fairly consistent. That doesn't mean I don't have really big highs and really big lows, but they're few and far between. Okay. So this really helped me because like during the pandemic, I don't think it served anyone to watch all of the scary things that were happening on a loop, which is what a lot of people did. And then they couldn't leave their house and they felt claustrophobic and they were watching scary news on a loop. So I didn't quite understand the significance of this until this holiday season that just passed. Shortly after Christmas, I had some family come and a bunch of people descended on my home. And every year around the holidays, I think to myself, gosh, we're really lucky. Like we're a family that enjoys each other's company. We look forward to getting together. We like sitting around drinking wine and telling stories. We're lucky. We don't have big, ugly fights. I feel blessed. That doesn't mean that certain behaviors that I normally engage in didn't have to change while people were here. Like I lost control over my routine. I couldn't do yoga in the middle of the afternoon in a living room where a bunch of people were sitting, obviously. I lost control of the thermostat and I lost control over the TV and what sound and environment was created inside my home for a full 10 days while people were here. And so despite loving all my family as much as I do, I reached a really dark place. Last week was a bad week, you guys. And I mean, I lost all of my optimism, all of my hope for the future. Everything that gets me out of bed that I'm excited about just like faded into oblivion. It was a bad, it was a bad week. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I was ready to like throw in the towel on all of my dreams and like go get a job bagging groceries and like be a grown up. I don't know where any of these thoughts were coming from, except that I do. And that's what I'm getting at here. I didn't know where they were coming from. And then one afternoon, everybody left for several hours and the TV was off. And suddenly I had an appetite and suddenly I wanted to come out of my room and tidy things up a little bit and take a walk outside in nature and breathe in fresh air. All things I had literally no compulsion to do. I just wanted to lay in bed and be sad. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, whoa, the news has been on a 24-hour loop for 10 days. And even prior to that, my mom and I had to quarantine because we had COVID together. So it was actually longer than 10 days, but even 10 is a long time if you're used to living alone and you do take measures to regulate your mental landscape. And I didn't even realize that that was something I was intentionally doing until the ability to do it was taken away from me and my will to live essentially left with it. So I think this is really important because for me, news on a loop is the same news over and over again. So even if you're not listening after the first time they've told that story, it's like you're pounding it into your head anyway. Murder and inflation and political strife and inequality. And you're just beating yourself over the head with it when you have that news on all the time, or you check it multiple times throughout the day. So I learned right away, I have to create boundaries. When I open my home in the future, the news can't be on all day. We can watch it for like an hour and then if the TV has to be on, cooking channels, way happier, right? So create whatever boundaries you need to in your own life to eliminate negativity that way. And if you are someone who is addicted to the news, I'm going to invite you hard to change that. I change it for a month and just see how your emotional state is affected because I want to guarantee that it's going to get better for you. If you can't control the TV or the news being on, or you're at work and it's on in the background or something like that, wear noise canceling headphones. And as much as you can get away with something like that, and instead during that time when someone else is watching the news on a loop or not watching it and just subliminally hearing all that shit in their ears, listen to a podcast or something inspirational. Listen to a book on tape or music. Fill your well with enriching content. Consume things that feel nurturing and good and inspiring instead. So as long as we're talking about ousting negativity, we have to talk about complaining. I'm going to link to an article I wrote about complaining addiction. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time. He says, we have become addicted to our negative belief patterns because they feel safe and familiar. And the hormones of stress give the brain a rush of energy. And it's like a narcotic. It's like taking a drug. So people become addicted to that feeling. And then they begin to use the problems in their life to reaffirm the addiction. Like, it sounds crazy, but when you read this article, you will start to understand how people who are addicted to complaining. And it's this sort of, I don't know, I feel like we're, as a society, kind of leaning toward a bit more of a victim mentality than a few generations past. And I think victimhood and complaining go hand in hand. When you're complaining about something, it's because something has been, quote unquote, done to you. And when it is done to you, you are not empowered to create change. You are feeling victimized. So this is really, really important. Complaints are weeds in your garden of dreams. They have a low vibrational frequency. Right? That makes sense when you're like, meh, meh, meh. Like, people don't necessarily even want to hang out with you because you're like harshing their vibe, right? It's low vibrational energy when you are caught in that loop of like, something was done to me and I'm upset about it and I feel like a victim. And if our thoughts are magnets for our reality, and if you create more of whatever you think about all day, every day, basically every complaint, every negative thought about yourself or someone else or your circumstances or the dick that cut you off on the drive over, it attracts more of the same. And it repels the high vibe abundance that you have to have in your garden of dreams. So these things can't go together. If you like complaining and you like the right to, as soon as you see everyone gather around the water cooler, go over and, give them your morning gripe, the cost of that is never being able to successfully manifest. Like, the two cannot coexist. So what choice are you going to make? So I understand that not everybody can control who they interact with. Sometimes the complaining isn't coming from you, it's coming from someone else. So if that's the case, try step 2. This is a visualization where you imagine that you are made of glass. All right, stick with me here. It has taken me over a decade to realize that meditation is more effective when you release the expectation of an outcome rather than when you try to micromanage it like a drill sergeant. Imagine. Most of the time when I'm meditating, I am actively, first of all, actively rather than passively or receptively, I am actively trying to quiet my mind by saying things like this in my mind. Focus on breathing, count the breaths, feel the air coming in your nostrils, feel how cool it is, feel the air going out. It is literally a barrage of instructions, and I am failing the whole time I'm doing it to myself because I keep saying sentences in my head, which is not silence. So this is the definition of pushing a boulder up a cliff, of making this harder than it has to be. So on the other hand, and I just kind of learned this recently, when I am too tired or too lazy to play drill sergeant, my mind becomes nonverbal. The sentences go away, and it's still not the least bit quiet because human minds never are. But now, instead of these sentences, this drill sergeant voice in my head, I see a montage of images. So random stuff, My Little Pony, fireworks, glowing coals in a campfire, a plate of Brussels sprouts, an image from last night's TV watching. It's kind of like when you used to look at those magic eye posters, but the only way to see them in 3D was to unfocus your eyes and kind of cross them, and then you'd be able to see it, right? This is me unfocusing my brain. Same premise, just different body part. And since all of those images are basically nonsense, they don't mean anything. They're just coming up because my brain is never quiet, but they're basically meaningless to me in verbal terms. So my brain doesn't sink its teeth into any of it. So it sort of like floats into my awareness and then floats out of my awareness. It appears and then it disappears. That is the premise behind doing the body of glass visualization. So you just imagine that this person who you can't escape being around is shooting complaints at you or sending negativity your way. And instead of having to attach yourself to it or respond to it, you are made of glass, and the energy passes right through you and keeps going. So you can do the meditation in preparation of when you have to meet with this person. And then again, in the moment, just visualize it's just passing through you. I also think if you stop reacting when people complain to you, they will go elsewhere because you will no longer be a satisfying sounding board. If you're not like, oh man, that really sucks, they'll go find someone who is going to engage. I like the idea of just ignoring it, pretending that they're not talking at all. I know it sounds kind of harsh, but quit harshing my mellow, yo. So this meditation is great if you have no choice about who you spend your time with. And I know for some of you, you're going to say, I go into an office and there are people there that are negative. This is what I mean by that. If you can't control that, this is what you should try to employ instead. But I would also argue that one of the best things you can do to cultivate a mental landscape for manifesting your dreams is to be intentional about who you spend time with. It is said that you are a combination of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. The first time I heard this, I was like, whoa, I'm not okay with this. So stop for a second. Who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? Are they people that push you to be better? Are they people who, whenever they're not at work, sit at home and play video games? Like, these are all things worthy of note if you are trying to push yourself to meet your goals, to create the life that you want for yourself. You need to be very intentional about who you're spending time with. So do a little housekeeping in this regard if necessary. And this could be a whole episode on its own, like how to spend less time with people who harsh your vibe. It's not the right topic for this episode. There are tactful ways to do this, but you need to consider that perhaps a better solution would be to put yourself in situations where you're the dumbest person in the room. Because what that means is that everyone around you, you can learn from. Everyone around you, you can vibe with, and you can ride the coattails of their manifesting energy, of their motivation and flow and inspiration and creativity just by osmosis, by being in the room with them. So this is a really, really important step to do a little housekeeping around. Step 4, do mirror work. I just learned about this and this is rad, you guys. So who are you? That's the question you need to start with. Who am I? And then a better question, who do I want to be? So maybe, like me, you have a hard time admitting this to yourself. I am a podcaster, copywriter, mentor to squirrel-brained creative entrepreneurs. But what I most want to be in life, more than anything in the world, is a wandering storyteller. I want to write all the things, articles, but mostly novels, and still live a life of abundance and adventure. But it's taken me a really long time to say out loud that I want to be a best-selling author. But now, every time I see my reflection in the mirror in a shop window at the department store, I say to myself, this is what a wealthy best-selling author looks like. Every time. Do it every single time you get out of the shower, when you're brushing your teeth. Doesn't matter. When you adjust the rear view mirror while you're driving. This is what a wealthy best-selling author looks like. This is hard to do when you look like crap. So if you're wearing baggy sweats with holes in them, or you've just gone for a run and are like super sweaty, but those are the times when it is most important to do, because all of you is what the world is getting, and all of you is worthy. And this hot fucking mess in the mirror right now is what a wealthy best-selling author looks like. All right. You guys are going to love this exercise. Step 5, cultivate the environment a rich, best-selling author, if that's you, lives in. Cultivate that environment. So whatever the thing is for you, wealthy wellness coach, wealthy horse trainer, like thinking of the things that my friends do. Whatever it is for you, what environment does that person who you are becoming live in? So get rid of old things. I was going through my closet not too many months back, and I was like, this has a hole in it. This has a hole in it. Why do I have all these things that have holes in it? No, out with the old. Definitely. If something doesn't make you feel fabulous, get rid of it. If your car is dirty, clean it. I am basically just saying this to myself, but a wealthy best-selling author takes care of her stuff. So act like you care, right? Clean your space. If it's just like some dusting and like a quick Swiffer job that's going to make your face smell and feel fresh and clean, absolutely do that. Declutter if that's going to give you a blank slate to start from. Basically, think of it as making space that's now you've got an empty space instead of this junk. And that's the space that can be filled with all this new abundance. Okay. So, and if you can get help, ask your family to help, but hire help if that's something that you have the capacity for, so that you can devote more time to your creative manifestation. And then lastly, once you've cleared all the clutter and the gunk and the energetic staleness, make the space feel special. So if that's candles or aromatherapy, do some research if you have pets about aromatherapy. I found out that a lot of things are highly, highly toxic to dogs and cats, and you don't know that you're secretly poisoning them. So sorry if that harshes anyone's vibe, but I don't want anyone's fur babies to get messed up by this suggestion. So do your research. But maybe it's unscented candles. Maybe it's just creating a ritual around the actions that are going to take place in that space. If you want to write a book, maybe you clear off a certain desk in a certain room that gets the sunlight just so in the afternoon, and you burn some incense and you play some really like cool, wordless, like vibey music in the background. And you do that every time you sit down to write. So it becomes something special and it becomes ritualized. And this is the environment that a wealthy, best-selling author lives in, right? So kind of piggybacking off of this idea, step 6 is to make a happiness playlist. I've talked about this before because it's like my favorite thing that I do. And I will link to my Spotify happiness playlist just so you can get some ideas. Do not judge my choices. I have a very eclectic music taste. And some of the songs are even sarcastically happy. But the point is, I could not hear this. Like if you and I were talking, and I consider myself a very good listener, but if you and I were talking and one of these songs came on, I would start singing over you talking. Like my inability to control myself because the song was on would supersede my manners, which is unusual for me. Those kinds of songs go on this playlist so that you can listen to it whenever you need to pick me up, whenever you're having a bad day or you just got some bad news, or when you have to do something scary, like go on a job interview or get interviewed on a podcast or have a tough conversation. You can listen to your playlist beforehand and it will make you high vibration. And there's just no argument that this absolutely works. You can also make a different one if you want like power songs or songs that just like make you feel like a warrior goddess. Those are obviously options as well. So it's kind of fun to have some different playlists for different things, but you can encompass them all under your happiness playlist. And I guarantee it will create a high vibration that makes you super, super magnetic for manifesting all the cool shit that you want. So step 7 is to act as if, still piggybacking off the cultivate an environment that a rich author lives in. I just saw Hala Taha recently. If you don't know her, she's known as the podcast princess, and she's like mid-20s, I think, and extraordinarily smart. Like, holy cow, was she born with business sense? I know that's not true. She absolutely earned that knowledge, but she's badass. That's the point. And she was doing a reel about how if you want to take yourself seriously as an entrepreneur and be taken seriously, you need to dress the part. You need to, like, here again, this is for all of my people listening right now who like work from home because sweatpants are so comfortable, or like you never have to get out of your pajamas. Guilty, 100% guilty. However, I think that I could take a step in the right direction by just ensuring that I like shower every morning and wash my face. Like, I think that a wealthy author would do those things every morning. So it's just like this slight little shift of me taking myself more seriously as an entrepreneur. But if you want to take it so far as buying an outfit that just makes you feel amazing, then absolutely do that. And I'm going to just like meet you all in the middle, my yoga pants everyday wearing listeners, and say, wear the button down appropriate for the office blouse on top with your yoga pants on the bottom. It's a win-win, right? Yes. Okay. Step 8, keep track of all of the efforts that you're making to tighten up your mental landscape, shape up your ship, so to speak. Habit tracking is something that I teach to a lot of my clients. And I have a habit tracker. I'll drop the link for that if you want to play around with it. It's basically gamified habits and habit stacking. So you get a score at the end of the week, and then you compete against your personal best. It's an argument for giving yourself reasons to celebrate all the time. However, I showed it to one of my accountability buddies recently, and she was like, oh no, I couldn't use something like that. It would make me feel bad about myself, like every day. This is an illuminating thing because she's in the business of protecting her mentality around wellness and about like being de-stressed and health and like living her best life. So to use a tracking method, I think things need to be tracked in general because you can't measure what you're not tracking. So if you want to improve something, you have to track it in some way. But I thought it was really insightful for her to know that that was setting herself up for failure, and she's not here for that anymore. So we came up with instead creating, it's kind of like I've talked about before, a what have I done so far list. Sit down at the beginning of each morning and write in your journal all of the things that you did do yesterday that the ordinary person wouldn't even think of. That, you know, who doesn't really care about the stuff that you care about. So you remember to take your vitamins 3 times a day, and you got out for an hour long walk. Good for you. And this whole week, so by the end of the week, you worked out, you did cardio 3 times. Like, oh my God, how many people don't do that? And it's more of a, wow, I'm really impressed. In spite of being the super busy person who runs a household and has a job and has a second job and all of the things, I managed to do this, and this yesterday. I'm amazing. I really like this and think that I might be taking this into sort of my approach, my like weekly reflection. I've started doing it on the mornings I can remember to do it. Sort of as a measure of like, where did the hours go yesterday? What were they spent on? And which of those things make me proud? I like it. I think that this is a really great thing for you guys to try. So I'll drop the link to the habit tracking checklist spreadsheet if you think that would be of benefit to you. And if not, try this other thing. What have I gotten done instead? Like, let's celebrate it all. So that's it, you guys. I loved doing this episode for you because I'm here for it. I am here for manifesting all the goodies this year and getting rid of the limiting beliefs and the negativity blocks and all the stuff that isn't serving. I just know that being high vibe is so, so critical to the success of this. And I'm here to teach you how to do that in your own life. And let's connect and let's like totally be high vibe together, because I'm here for you guys, and just keep the good energy flowing, right? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Instagram at Your Creative Fairy Godmother. I'm not on there as much as I used to be, but I do check my DMs. So reach out. I'll answer your questions. I'll shout out your business on the air. I love to connect with my listeners. So it seems really appropriate because of this episode to leave you with my free mindset mastery checklist. This is literally the lazy multi-passionate's guide to creating the most fertile dream garden ever. Sure to make you a manifestation queen or king or wizard, whatever. And if you want that, you can download it at jennyo'connor.com/mindset. It's fun. I think it's just something that will bring joy into your life. So like, why not, right? Until next time, remember, if you're going to rise, you may as well shine. Now get on out there and do the thing.